Good morning, Year 10. We're going today to do a brief recap on Peter Singer. Well done to those of you who have handed in your research on Peter Singer and abortion. There was a really good level of understanding shown, and I could see that you had taken real time to look at a variety of sources. So that was really lovely to see, and I'm going to do some positive referrals later on this afternoon and maybe the odd email home. So well done. Some of you handed in just a blank Cornell note sheet. I have on your feedback said, can I actually see your work? So can you do that before you start today's lesson? So, as I said, a brief recap on Peter Singer and abortion, and then we're going to have a go at answering a Part D question on abortion. And the way that you answer Part D questions for the life and death topic is slightly different than for the other topics. And so we're going to spend quite some time today looking at structure and how you would answer those questions. But let's start with our overview of Peter Singer. And as I said, lots of you have done a really good job on your research, and you will have more detail than I am giving you today, and that's completely fine. I'm just doing broad brushstrokes, a general overview. So, as many of you said, Peter Singer is a preference utilitarian. So remember that classic utilitarianism says that you should maximise happiness and minimise pain. Peter Singer puts a spin on that, and he says what we should do is aim to satisfy people's preferences. So when we're making decisions, we take into account the preferences of all of those involved. And he would point out fetuses don't have preferences, mothers do, or the woman carrying the baby does. You could also say as well, the father has a preference. So this makes it very different from a Christian, and in particular a Roman Catholic approach to abortion, where the fetus is at the centre of the decision. For Peter Singer, the fetus doesn't have preferences. And so if that's the case, it's not at the centre of the decision. This was a nice phrase used by, I think, Amelie. He rejects Judeo-Christian ethics. So any kind of argument relating to abortion that's going to refer to the Ten Commandments or Bible teachings, or Pope said this, natural law says this, Peter Singer is going to have no time for that. It's just not relevant. We need to look at scientific evidence. We need to use, logic and reasoning. What we don't use are religious teachings. Speciesism is really important to Peter Singer, and this phrase is on the spec, and so we need to be aware of it. And speciesism is the accusation that people put their own species first without reason. So we need to be aware of giving rights to fetuses just because they are human fetuses. So, just as it would be wrong to put men before women just because they are men, or to put one colour or race before other people because of their race, that would be wrong. Peter Singer says we do the same with the human species all the time, and it's wrong. We should not give rights to humans just because they are humans. That doesn't mean humans don't have rights, of course they do, but they have rights because they are sentient beings. They're beings that have feelings and self-awareness, but so do other species, and so it's wrong to just exclusively give rights to humans. And so when making decisions about life and death, whether that is euthanasia or abortion, let's not just give a right to a human because they're a human, but give them a right because they might have self-awareness, preferences, and ability to feel pain. But those rights are likely to be shared amongst different species and not just to humans. We will look again at speciesism to make sure that you've got it right, because it is something that could come up in a Part B question on its own. So, Peter Singer says that the typical pro-life case states that it's wrong to kill an innocent human being. So that might be your reference, for example, to the Ten Commandments. A human fetus is an innocent human being. Therefore, it's wrong to kill a human fetus. Okay, so this is a logical chain of reasoning. These 1 and 2 are called premises, and then number 3 should follow. But if you can criticise any of the premises, any of the statements here, then the conclusion doesn't stand. And Peter Singer says often people who are arguing for women having the right to choose, they focus on this bit of when does a fetus become a human. And for Roman Catholics, that's at conception. For some people, it's, when the fetus feels pain. For some people, it's when the fetus is born. Peter Singer would say, no, hang on, let's look at premise number 1. It's wrong to kill an innocent human being. And that is speciesism in action. Why is it more wrong to kill a human than a chimpanzee or a dog? You can't just separate out one species over another. You wouldn't say, it's wrong to kill an innocent man, leaving hanging that, it's okay to kill women. Let's talk about, perhaps, it's wrong to kill an innocent being, or even it's wrong to kill a living being. And so Peter Singer says we need to have reasons why it's wrong to kill a human. You can't just assume it's wrong to kill a human because they're human. That's speciesist. And so he says we need to ask questions like, does that human being feel pain? If it does, then yes, it could be argued that it's wrong to kill it. Does the fetus have preferences? Well, if it does, then you could take those into consideration. Does the fetus have some kind of self-awareness? But you can't just go to, it's wrong to kill a human being. So I found this online when I was doing some research for you guys, and Quora is one of those websites where you can go and ask questions, and lots of people have asked the view of Peter Singer on abortion. I will show you now. So lots of people have asked, what is Peter Singer's philosophy on abortion? And I love the fact that Peter Singer has replied himself. Seems like several people want me to answer this question. And so then he goes on to give an answer whilst admitting that he is simplifying his case and telling you to go on and read his book. And so we're going to look in a little bit more detail at this answer here. Sorry, my screen is playing up a bit. So, mere species membership does not give you a right to life. So just being a human doesn't mean that your life deserves protection. That is controversial, isn't it? Certainly something that Christians would disagree with. Okay, so that's his link with speciesism. You can't say abortion is wrong because it's wrong to abort human fetuses, according to Singer. This is a bit more of his answer. I don't think there is anything wrong with abortion unless the abortion is carried out so late in pregnancy that the fetus might feel pain. So notice he's going to, abortion might be wrong if the fetus feels pain, not because the fetus is human. That is unlikely to be earlier than 20 weeks, although that is disputed. The overwhelming majority of abortions are performed much earlier than this. Even after that point, abortion is not morally wrong if it is done for a serious reason and the procedure is carried out in a manner that minimises the risk of the fetus experiencing pain. So Peter Singer is not jumping straight to aborting human fetuses is wrong. He's saying, well, if the fetus feels pain, well, then there could be a case made against it, but not jumping straight to aborting human fetuses is wrong. So this is Peter Singer writing in The Spectator, which is sort of a political magazine, a magazine where people give their views on issues of the day. So it is doubtful if a fetus becomes conscious until quite late in pregnancy. Even the presence of a consciousness would only put a fetus at a level comparable to a rather simple non-human animal, not that of a dog, let alone a chimpanzee. And so Peter Singer is saying we have to take into consideration the qualities that the fetus has when making a decision about abortion. And if an animal has the same qualities, it also has the same right to the protection of life. And yet we are not getting overly emotional about terminating pregnancy in dogs. There's a contradiction in there. If they have the same skills, the same ability to feel pain, why are we not getting upset about that topic? And that brings us back to speciesism. Okay, so Peter Singer wants to give the same right to life to all beings with the same ability to feel pain or the same self-awareness or consciousness, not just focusing on humans because they are human. Again, same magazine article. Yes, we can say the fetus is a living human being, but that alone is not sufficient to show it is wrong to end its life. After all, why in the absence of religious beliefs about being made in the image of God or having an immortal soul should mere membership of the species Homo sapiens be crucial to whether the life of a being may or may not be taken? So because Peter Singer rejects the evidence from Genesis about humans being unique in the image of God, having a soul, he's not going to single out human life for protection in the same way as a Christian would. This would make a really good counter-argument if you're using Genesis or religious teachings to argue a pro-life view, to argue against abortion. And Peter Singer says we cannot just focus on humans. They are not set apart in the way that the Bible claims. So, another counter-argument you sometimes see to Peter Singer is, yes, I agree with you that when a fetus is, in the womb, it perhaps doesn't have feelings, it perhaps doesn't have great intellectual abilities, and perhaps even when it's born, it doesn't have great intellectual abilities, etc., the ability to make preferences, but it has the potential to do so. Peter Singer would say, but hang on, we are living in a world that is vastly overpopulated, and so let's not be making decisions about the potential when the world that we're actually living in is so overly populated. When we looked at humanist views, that was an argument that was given there actually, that in a world that's so overpopulated, should we be going out of our way to allow pregnancies to happen when the child isn't particularly wanted? Interestingly, Peter Singer has had some clashes with the humanist community. He wrote an article criticising the naming of the humanist society, saying if there was an example of speciesism, it was an organisation set up to exclusively protect the rights of human beings. It's something we look at in more detail at A-level, although unfortunately Peter Singer is not on our A-level spec. which I think is a real shame. He's one of my favourite thinkers. Doesn't mean I agree with him on everything. I want to make that clear, but I do think he's really good at making you think and making you challenging your assumptions. And often Peter Singer says very controversial things, and some of you have found those online in your research. So he talks about infanticide and, is it morally wrong to kill a newborn baby? And he's not arguing for us all to go and kill newborn babies, but he's making us challenge our thinking about why we want to protect the life of newborns when perhaps we don't want to protect the life of animals. Anyway, I digress. This is like a real lesson, isn't it, where I wander off on a tangent. We're going to have a go at answering a Part D question. So this is your exam mat that you've got in your exercise books, and we're focusing on the Part D bit, which should be very familiar to you. But I want to highlight this here, that for the life and death topic, you have to give a non-religious view. If all that you give is a religious view, you're going to have your marks roughly halved. You're going to find it difficult to get above 7 marks, basically, because they cap it. So a reminder that in a Part D, you're given a statement to discuss. You have to give different supported arguments and reach judgments on how convincing the evidence is that you present. And in your answer, you want to use key terms and sources of wisdom. We advise you, this is our advice, but based on our experience of being examiners, is that to do that, you should give an initial response to the question, which is your answer, back that up with multiple bits of evidence, so 2, because you've only got 15 minutes, challenge it, and then make a decision about what was more convincing, the original argument and evidence or the challenge. And then do the same again with a different response, and then make a final decision about what was more convincing. This reaching judgments is really important, and that's why we have you making mini decisions before you get to your big decision at the end, because if you run out of time, you've still made judgments even if you haven't reached your conclusion. And we do have some people in the group who do have a tendency to run out of time when answering questions. But remember, for the life and death topic, you have to give a non-religious view. So this is the statement that we are going to be discussing in our answer, which is abortion can never be justified. And remember, I've spoken to you about hinge words. So they're the words in the question that the whole question hangs on, that change the way that you answer. And the claim that abortion can never be justified is an incredibly bold one. So we're going to start with your initial response, and because this is such a bold statement, it can never be justified, your initial response, which could be from the Roman Catholic Church or the Church of England, because we're giving our religious response first, it could be that yes, that is completely correct. It could be that is completely wrong, or it might be partially correct or mostly correct. You're then going to give evidence to support your view. So you could refer to natural law. You might refer to Bible teachings. You might refer to Pope Francis or to the Didache. And you might have other things. They were the things that came to mind first. And then you're going to give further evidence. Try and use those linking words like moreover, in addition to, furthermore. And then you're going to challenge the view that you have given here. So you might challenge a Roman Catholic view by giving a Church of England response, or the other way round. It might be that you refer to humanist views, or you refer to Peter Singer, or you refer to Mill, all of which we have covered in our previous lessons. And then you're going to make a judgment about what's more convincing. Was it this original view or was it the challenge? Then the second paragraph is going to be your non-religious view. And this is to make sure that your answer doesn't get capped. So now you're going to say a second response would be that this statement is right, wrong, partially correct. And you're going to say who is giving that view. So it might be humanists, it might be Peter Singer, you might give a view from a utilitarian perspective, it's up to you. And then you're going to support that view. And just because it's not a religious view, it doesn't mean that there isn't evidence to support it. And we've done a lot of work making sure that you can support humanist views, for example. So are you going to refer to utilitarianism, preference utilitarianism? You might refer to speciesism, the golden rules, to do unto others as you would want done to yourself. Autonomy, the ability to make decisions, scientific or medical information, the law, or the harm principle. And you're going to give 2 sets of evidence. Then you're going to challenge that view. Tell me, who is it that's challenging your non-religious view? Is it going to be the Roman Catholic denomination, the Church of England, humanism, utilitarianism, preference utilitarianism? And then you're going to make a decision about which view is convincing. Then you're going to make your final decision. Now, because we have made 2 mini decisions, if in the real exam you don't get to your final decision, it's not the end of the world. Because remember, you're going to give yourself 15 minutes maximum, maybe 17 or 18 if you've banked some time from earlier questions, but you're not going to spend half an hour doing this. And so if you've already got 2 mini decisions, you've reached some judgments, and it doesn't matter if you've run out of time. However, if you have only done A, B, C, and there are no decisions, and then you run out of time, you're stopping yourself from getting definitely in the top band, which is where lots of us want to be. So on Teams, you are going to submit. So you can have typed this. If you could type this up, that would help me, because I'm struggling sometimes to read what people have written in their books. And you're going to submit this question on Teams, and then we can have a feedback session. Thank you very much, Year 10.